Today we're restoring this beautiful vintage Longines, powered by the legendary 23Z manual wind movement. It came, believe it or not, with the original box and the original sales receipt, making this very special because really, who hangs on to a piece of paper that's from the mid-40s? And it definitely wasn't running when I got it, so let's bring it back to life. Hi, my name is Dennis, and this is Wheels and Watches DIY. So before we take it apart, I always like to check things out. I always look at the watch before getting into it. So let's get started. After the movement was taken out, we are taking off the hands. So I always take extra care by putting a piece of plastic on the dial so I don't scratch it. And as you can see, I'm super careful. These hands are super delicate, especially the second hand at 6 o'clock position. And I don't think I've ever seen or worked with a second hand as small as this. So this was very, very delicate. And anyway, so take extra care, don't rush, and it'll be okay. So in case you don't protect the dial and you decide to take the hands off without any sort of plastic on the dial, there's a pretty good chance you'll scratch it and you'll not ruin it, but you'll put extra marks on it and you'll be kind of sad. So after we've taken the hands off, we're going to remove the dial. There are a couple of screws on each side of the plate that hold the dial in place. Before you guys leave any comments, yes, I am not wearing any finger cuts right now. I wasn't touching the dial with my bare fingers. I just was touching the dial right on its side. So I thought that was pretty acceptable, but during reassembly I put finger cuts on after everything was thoroughly cleaned. And here you could see me taking off the balance after I've taken, I don't think I've taken the power down just yet. Or maybe I have. Not quite sure at this point, but let's keep going. So here we are, just inspecting the movement. So here we have that ratchet wheel, two really teeny tiny screws, and then we are trying to take off the main bridge that covers the train of wheels. Now notice that I'm not using my really expensive screwdriver and I'm using just a cheapo because I don't really want to ruin my good tools. And then the bridge itself was a little bit sticky. And it took a little bit of prying, but it worked okay. Now we've moved those parts away, and then we're onto the keyless works. A couple of screws to take off first of all, and then under the keyless works you'll see a tiny little spring. So just make sure that you take extra care when taking it off. I usually cover it, or maybe have something that will help me retain that spring in one place when I take it off, because if you lose it, you are not going to find it. If it jumps away on you, chances are you won't find it, so you'll need to source another one. And here we are taking off the cannon pinion, and I had to use my vintage tool for that. My new Bergeron wasn't quite right for the job, and this was a better fit. And here you just saw me taking off the screw that was retaining the stem with the crown, and then we're taking off the clutch. And here is that screw. Alright, let's continue with the disassembly, and I'm trying to do my best to inspect the wheels when I take them off for any obvious damage. I also try to I also try my best to sort all the wheels and all the screws and everything into their own place, so when it's time to reassemble, I'm not hunting or rewatching the video footage. But it does happen from time to time, so that's okay. And here we are taking that little bridge that was over that pallet fork. And here are a few more screws that cover the, what does it cover? The mainspring barrel. Alright, so let's assemble the mainspring barrel. Now I just pressed on the arbor with my bed tweezers to open it up, and then exposing the arbor, I took the arbor out. Now if you've never taken the mainspring barrel apart, make sure that you have something over that mainspring. They like to jump, so I typically started with a thicker pair of tweezers. Sometimes once I get going, I take those tweezers away and I just use my fingers. And I always try to make sure that I know the orientation of the mainspring, because otherwise your watch will not work. And here we are, we're moving to the cleaning. And pre-cleaning, I find, is one of the really important steps that some people may want to skip, but I would encourage you not to. I've had some not so good results if I didn't pre-clean, even with the best solutions and whatnot. Oh, here we are. Somebody left a little mark from before, which I don't like, but it is what it is. I always try to clean the jewels with pegwood, and then that just ensures that everything's working the way it should once the watch is assembled. And then a moment ago you saw me putting all the parts into my ChronoClean manual crank cleaning machine, and we're moving on to cleaning the mainspring. So I take a piece of watchmaker's paper, dip it in alcohol, and run it through the mainspring, and then I do it a few times until I see that the paper is more or less clear. Again, you see me here wearing gloves. I'm working with chemicals at this point, so you just want to be protected the best that you can. Okay, so you did not see me wind the mainspring using my vintage K&D mainspring winder, but here you just heard that satisfying click that we all like. So the mainspring is in. Here I'm going to point out, so the lid has a little notch, or opening rather, so just make sure that everything lines up before you are closing it. And I did not hear the click, but let's just check the side. And looks like the barrel is closed. If your barrel is not closed completely, that's not going to work. So again, please make sure that the barrel is fully closed and it's even. Alright, so let's get on to the assembly. Here I'm lubricating the clutch and the stem. So any metal on metal contact points, I'm using grease. I got my lever in there, and here I am installing that little spring. Notice that I'm holding it in place. That thing is a pain. I've lost a couple of springs before, so I try to be as careful as I can be. And once I get a few things installed, I cover it up, lubricate everything, and tighten everything up with a couple of screws. The keyless work is complete, and I think we're going to test it now. Seems to be working. Yeah, everything's nice and smooth. We're going to start with the barrel. We're going to cover it with a bridge. And then I totally forgot about the escape wheel and the pallet fork. So we're going to clean them real quick and we'll dry them. By the way, I have a different jar for my hair dip before people start commenting that there's a piece of plastic there. I just didn't want it to smell, and unfortunately I had to throw that hair dip out afterwards because it did react with the plastic. But now I do have a full glass jar that has a really nice tight lid, and it works like a charm. So let's get to the train of wheels. I'm putting everything on my watchmaker's paper. So if you're new to watch restoration, it is really difficult to line up those pivots. And depending on the type of movement, if you work with it or not, you may spend some good amount of time making sure everything lines up. One thing I've learned that, you know, if something needs to be forced, you're going to break it. So nothing should feel forced at all. All the pivots should really slide into their respective positions. And then to test it out, we're gonna spin the wheels afterwards. So let's line everything up. All right. A few more components, a couple of screws. So this was for the escape wheel, I believe. And now I'm just aligning everything. Alright, so now I feel like the bridge is on and everything's moving nicely. And I always support it. Once the pivots are in their proper positions, you can tighten everything up. I think overall this is a really nice movement. Everything was really well made, even though this watch is from the mid-40s. I believe this is my first or second Longines. I haven't worked on too many of them, but overall, here we go. Now we're going to test that train. Everything's nice and smooth. The only thing I did not like is the balance cock and how to clean the jewel. But we're going to get to that. And here we are. checking everything out. So the main train of wheels is in. And now I believe we're gonna go and try to install here. We're gonna test it out one more time. Everything's nice and smooth. And I believe we're on to the click spring next. So we have 1, 2, 3, a few screws just to point out. All right. So now that everything is secure, let's move on to the ratchet wheel and the click spring. So we're slowly rebuilding the powertrain. So the click spring really prevents the mainspring from unwinding through the crown. This is a very tiny part, but it's a very important one. I guess everything is in a watch. Again, the contacts that are metal on metal, I try to lubricate. Now the screws for that ratchet wheel, they're pretty tiny. Probably as tiny as, well, maybe not as tiny. Second tiniest screw in the watch. The tiniest ones were on the underside of the balance cock. And here we are, trying to line things up. And you could see my really nice Bergeron screwdrivers before I upgraded my fairly new to me Horotech. I believe those were purchased maybe a month or two ago. Nothing wrong with the Bergeron, I really like them, but the fact that I did not have a stand drove me absolutely bananas. So here we are, trying to install the pallet fork, and the little bridge that holds it in place is held by one tiny screw. So the watchmaker side after this is complete, if you don't include the balance. Which is the heart of the movement, by the way. Alright, so we're holding that little bridge in place while screwing that screw in. And here we are. I am really pleased with how clean and shiny this movement is, even though it's from the mid-40s. Let's test out that pallet fork, and it was going side to side pretty nicely with just ever slight wind on the mainspring. And here we are installing the balance. After a little maneuvering, it starts right up. Keep in mind that this balance has not been serviced, and I'll point out that the jewel does not have a shock setting on this one. So to service this thing, you got to take it all apart, which is absolute pain. And here we are giving some lubrication to all those pivots. And I'm doing this with the movement running, and I'm applying lubrication on both sides. So servicing the balance cock, that's the next thing. That's what I'm doing there. During this restoration, I'll admit I accidentally damaged the original hairspring while doing the final step of reassembly, and I tried to put it back together, but it was just not right. So rather than losing more time, I had to source a donor watch. Now, here's a cool part. I somehow found a donor Longines 23Z movement where the balance cock had a shock jewel. So I did not have to go through all this mumbo jumbo. But nevertheless, I have included that footage here just so you could see what kind of work this requires. And here we are. Again, I did not take my finger cots here. I did not put them on. I found that my tactile sensitivity is definitely lower with the finger cots on. And then the balance cock has not been cleaned, so I figured no big deal. So after a while, I take it all apart. The pivots look good. We clean the balance in OneDip, and now we're taking apart the rest of it to get to that jewel. Now, I don't know if I'm going to show this, but these screws are absolutely tiny. Oh, there's one, and there goes the other. As soon as I take them out, I put them away, because if you sneeze, you're going to lose them. And then the same rules apply while cleaning all this stuff. You essentially have to take all the gunk out, make sure it's squeaky clean, pick the drill hole, put some lubrication, and then put it back together. So like I said, fortunately I was able to find this donor watch with good balance, and then also this balance will make future servicing a lot simpler. And honestly, sometimes restorations do not go according to plan, and I think it's important to show that. So here I am putting some lubrication onto the balance cock. Alright, let's put it all back together. Now looking back, working on the balance and trying to fiddle with it took me a really long time. Maybe it's because I was not exposed to this caliber before, not quite sure. And here's that second screw going back in. Okay, and now we're going to reattach the balance wheel, and you'll see me drop it, and that's where I mangled the spring. So what have we learned from this? When you feel tired, don't think that one more thing to do and I'll be done, because chances are, oh, there we go. There was when I messed it up. But I'll put it back together anyways. So, as I was saying, if you're feeling tired, if your head is not in the right place, honestly, it's better to put it down rather than just pushing forward and trying to make it work. So it did start, but the amplitude was ridiculously low, and then I didn't really feel like messing. Oh, here I'm showing the other side where the balance fits on the underside of the plate. And this is an old school little hatch where the jewel sits. Again, there's no shock spring, but that side's not so bad. It's actual disassembly of the balance cock that drove me absolutely insane. And here we are putting the dial together. After we've done that, secured it with some dial screws, we're on to cleaning up the hands a little bit and installing them. Now, I did not touch the dial at all, so I basically dusted it and used my super fine camera brush that's used for lenses to clean it up. And it's basically a piece of felt. That's really it. Same with the hands. I didn't really do much to them. And here you can see me installing those hands with my hand setting tool. I do have to admit, I do like using it. I find that the way I set the hands using it, it's much straighter, it's more predictable. Same with the force. Just because you have that feedback from the spring pushing back, and both the hour and the minute hands are installed onto the seconds hand. Now that thing is tiny, and you can see me struggle there just a little bit. And then to finish it off, we'll use my tool again. And after that, I think we're ready to case it. Now the service movement and everything else is going back to the original case. I did not do anything to the crystal. The crystal is original. God forbid you break that thing. I have not seen one like that for sale, and if you do manage to find one, I will bet it will cost an arm and a leg. And notice here, the balance has that shock protection there, and I'm gonna pause it just for a minute. Much easier. You take the shock spring out, and then clean it all up, put some lubrication, drop it back in. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And I would prefer this over the old version any day of the week. So, but the watch is running. When you see the time graph of the movement, notice that it's running a little slow, but the trace is good. It was clean. Keep in mind that I have not replaced anything else. There may be some wear on the pivots somewhere. But then after everything, after adjusting it slightly, on the wrist it was showing decent time. So overall, I think it was pretty decent and successful restoration. Was it perfect? I don't think so. But again, this is a hobby. I'm not a professional watchmaker. I just like playing with watches. And I think it turned out quite well overall. And because I did not have the original strap, the stretch strap that came with the watch, I don't think it was original. So I gave it a nice Epsom leather strap. I think it suits it quite well. And there she is in all its glory. So here are the timing results after the overhaul. And I would say, all things considered, I'm pretty happy with it and the way it's performing. The bit error is nice. It had decent amplitude. By the way, the mainspring is original. If it was replaced with a new one, I bet you the amplitude would be a little bit higher. But overall, I think it was well worth it. And I like ending the restorations with a few shots of the watch from different angles. So I'm glad that this Longines got a second life. My name is Dennis, and this was Wheels and Watches DIY. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.